VIOTEK. It's a decent budget monitor, gaming monitor. This is the new GNV30CBXA. It's a 29.5 inch gaming monitor. This is 2560 by 1080. It's ultra wide, but it's 2560 by 1080. Let's take a look. All right, so first up, 2560 by 1080. This is an odd resolution. It's a 21 by 9 instead of 16 by 9, so it's a widescreen resolution. It's as tall as 1080p, but it's 2560 wide. So 2560 by 1440 would be the 16 by 9 equivalent, or sometimes you see 3440 by 1440, which is the other 21 by 9 equivalent that's a higher resolution. That's a resolution, I think personally, that you know you want to go ultra wide. See, the reality is, ultra wide is kind of popular, and ultra wide is also kind of popular. The, like the Samsung fancy pants $1,400 monitor. Yeah, no, this is not that, but this is aims to be a good value. Oh no, I'm losing it. It's pretty well packed. This is pretty much exactly how it's going to come to you when you buy it. It is a monitor with standard 100mm VISA mounting holes, so that's nice, because if you want to put it on an arm or something like that, you can. It has DisplayPort in, that is DisplayPort 1.2, and 3 HDMI inputs. One of the HDMI inputs is 2.0, and the other 2 HDMI inputs are 1.2. So keep that in mind. That'll matter for the refresh rate. This is a curved monitor, in case you didn't know, that's 1800R. The aspect ratio, as I said, is 21 by 9, 2560 by 1080. The backlight is eLED. It's 300 CDs per meter squared maximum typical brightness. Color temperature of 7500K out of the box, 112% sRGB, so they say 85% NTSC, although we're gonna put that to the test. More on that in a second. 7 milliseconds response time with 5 milliseconds overdriver. Again, we'll put that to the test. 200 hertz max, maximum 45 watts of power draw, with a 3000 to 1 contrast ratio on static images. The DisplayPort cable has a tag on it that says press down then pull out. I wonder how many people had to destroy the connector before they were like, yeah, we need to put a sticker on that. People are dumb. You get a squeeze, it's got little grabbers. Not all DisplayPort cables are like that. You know what Dell's fix for that was? They took the button out and the little grabbers. You can't lock it in anymore. Not sure I agree with that fix. I like this better. Now the power brick for this one, it's built in, which is nice. The mounting screw comes pre-installed, so you have to take that out. Even though VIOTEK is one of the most budget-friendly brands on the market, they still include an all-metal, height-adjustable stand. Well, mostly metal. Fancy. Now, initially out the gate, the latency on this monitor is about 25 milliseconds, but there's a curiosity here. The latency by the time you get to the end of the display is about 33 milliseconds. Now remember, 1/60th of a second, 60 hertz, is 16 milliseconds. So at the top here, this is more than 16 milliseconds, but by the bottom, you get to 32. That means that it's displaying this frame in less than 1/60th of a second, even though the test signal that I'm sending to it is 60 hertz. So there's some buffering going on in there. We're gonna have to mess around in the on-screen display and see if we can get a better latency figure. Testing is well underway. Now this monitor has some interesting properties in the processor that's inside the monitor, at least I'm guessing here, but I'm pretty sure this is what's going on. So we were seeing the kind of high input latency. I turned on response time and it maybe got a little better. We can get about 20 milliseconds of minimum input latency at 60 hertz. And then of course it takes less than 1/60th of a second to draw the whole frame. So it buffers the frame for a second. It does that in order to overdrive the panel. And you can really see that in text scrolling. Text scrolling at 165 hertz. It's easier to see this on camera on YouTube at 165 hertz than 200 hertz. I had to reshoot some of this, so just bear with me. But at 165 hertz, you can kind of see the text looks a little redder, and that's because things sort of respond differently depending on which layer of the liquid crystal display you're turning on and you're doing stuff with. But it's actually pretty genius the way that they've got this set up to sort of overdrive the properties of the actual LCD panel. So you get sort of that red smearing on scrolling text, but if you look at the chase squares, which is perhaps the worst side effect, you can really see sort of some of the blue smearing in the gray. That's not great in terms of image quality and some of the other properties. But if you look at the overclocking squares, where it's like one square after another, after another, after another, at 165 hertz, this is one of the best results we've seen from a monitor in this price class. Now those squares never come fully on. It's sort of looking ahead. It has to buffer, like it's sort of a look ahead buffer. It has to look at the next frame that's coming in order to make a decision about how hard to drive this frame. So it sees that square is going to be on only for one frame. So it doesn't really light up the square for the full frame. It still turns it on, you can still see it, it just doesn't come on quite as fully. It's a pretty genius way to drive the panel, but you should be aware of these image characteristics. Now, in terms of game performance, what I have here for image scrolling, you know, you're playing Dota, moving around or whatever, it's really hard to see those little subtle effects. You really notice it the most on super high contrast things like text scrolling. You really don't see it as much when you're playing a game. Wow, the out-of-the-box color profile, super green. It does say it's 7865K, and the initial brightness is right where it should be though, which is pretty good. All right, we got the color temperature set on user, and I had to adjust green down to 41 in order to get this thing close-ish. So blue 43, green 41, red 41 is about perfect. And now we check the color calibration profile. Spoiler alert, I've already done the color calibration. If you're interested in this for, you know, quasi-professional work, editing the occasional home movie, you know, that kind of thing, check out the color profile on the Level 1 text forum and make the decision if that's for you. It's not a professional monitor, it's not designed to be a professional monitor. You can check out something a little more high-end than that if you're into that. But all in all, it is not bad. It advertises greater than 100% sRGB. It delivers greater than 100% sRGB. It's a little odd sometimes, like with the scrolling, like I say, but for gaming, it's pretty decent. For the gaming side of things, I don't really have too many complaints other than stuff that I already showed you. In terms of packaging and fit and finish, it's a plastic case. The bezel's a little thicker at the bottom. It's got the VIOTEK logo. The 1800R curve is really easy to get used to. It's really easy to settle into. I like the small size of the bezels. It does have an anti-glare coating on it that's not super anti-glare, so you still get a nice sharpness with the pixels. The anti-aliasing test was one of the best that I've seen for, you know, a 1080p high monitor. 2560 by 1080p, you can comfortably have two windows side by side. It works pretty well. Like I say, you have to be committed to the widescreen resolution. You might trade up to the 3440 by 1440 if you're widescreen curious, because that gives you a lot more room to work than 2560 by 1080. But still, if you've got your heart set on an inexpensive widescreen monitor, 2560 by 1080, this monitor will do it for you. The rest of the build quality and what you can see on the rear of the display, a red LED sort of around the back. You got some lines and polish. It's a matte black finish. It's got a nice texture that's not going to pick up dirt or fingerprints, or at least it's not going to show it. So that works pretty well in terms of like this display and the other stuff. I like the fact that the stand is metal, and really I have no complaints about the construction or the quality of the construction. Now VIOTEK, you know, depending on where they are and, you know, what the rules are and that kind of thing, check your local warranty, check prices, do comparison shopping, come to the Level 1 forums to ask questions. But as of right now, where the MSRP for this monitor is not a bad deal, but pricing varies, and depending on what else is available in the market and what else has come out, it can change the equation. So it's hard to make a recommendation. It's not head and shoulders better than anything else on the market, but they've done some clever engineering, especially around the whole latency, frame analysis, that kind of thing. For the panel, the image quality is a little bit better as a result of doing the pre-analysis. Can be a little bit better gaming and gaming, you know, visual fidelity, but it does come at a little bit of a latency cost. You're giving up about 16 milliseconds, give or take. I wouldn't say that the latency is 20 milliseconds or anything like that. This monitor runs about 1/60th of a second behind the fastest gaming monitors that you can get. So, if you're not a pro gamer, it's not gonna matter for you, probably not. I'm Wendell, this is Level 1. This has been a hopefully pretty quick look at the GNV30CBXA monitor. I can't remember those names. Sorry, I try. 29.5 inches, ultra wide. If you have any questions or I missed anything, come to the Level 1 forum. Let's work it out. Let's see what we can do. Signing out, and I'll see you there.